Welcome everyone to the Juxtaposition channel and welcome to the Admiralty. That's right, the home to the courts of the law of the sea and all navigable waterways. Can include canals, rivers, streams, reservoirs, and duck blinds. Those are all part of the Admiralty. That was some Admiralty music to open today's show. All right, I want everyone to pay attention, sit down, concentrate, get yourself a beverage, and this will be a relatively short video in the juxtaposition format, but just going to have a little soliloquy regarding the world in which you live through no fault of your own. You were born into the Admiralty, where you live under maritime law. There's no constitution, there are no constitutions, there are no Bill of Rights, there are no laws of the land. There's only the law of the Admiralty, which includes the breathable airspace troposphere over your head and into low Earth orbit. That also is part of the concept of an aircraft carrier, which is a ship at sea, a sailing vessel, which is under the auspices of authority, jurisdiction of the Admiralty. It also has a flight deck and airplanes that travel in our atmosphere, and they too are governed under the jurisdiction of the Admiralty. This would include the USS Kane and the Royal Her Majesty's ship HMS the Bounty. The Bounty. There was a mutiny upon the Bounty. So it also include the USS Pueblo, naval spy intelligence ship spying on North Korea in the 1960s. You may remember the USS Pueblo. It was written about and documented in a poppycock mendacity manner by Kurt Gentry, who wrote a book that told you what didn't happen with the USS Pueblo and the spying of NATO upon another non-NATO country, North Korea. Kurt Gentry went on to write Overflight, which told you what didn't happen with the Francis Gary Powers Lockheed Martin Air Force shootdown over Russia. He told you what didn't happen. And then he went on to work with Vincent Bugliosi, who did very little work, to come up with this idea of helter-skelter and the murder of Sharon Tate and Abigail Folger, where they completely deleted Lino LaBianca and Rosemary in the book called Chaos. I believe it was called Chaos, was it not? Well, no, it was called Helter Skelter. Then later we had a book by Tom O'Neill, who is a waiter in Hollywood, living in Venice, military intelligence Venice, and he's attributed with spending 10 years researching the Manson murders, where he learned nothing, and wrote a book called Chaos, the story of Charlie Manson and the CIA COINTELPRO. Nothing whatsoever to do with NATO Gladio murders, but of course that's what they do in the Admiralty. They commit felony crimes, both at sea and land, and then they cover it up with fake book authors, fake journalists, people like Seymour Hersh, for example, Andrea Mitchell, for another example, Walter Cronkite, for another example, Dan Ratherby Bowling, for another example, Rachel Madcow, Tucker Carlson, Stu Peters, Glenn Greenwald, Whitney Webb, Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, Anderson Cooper, and on and on and on. The world of circus clowns promoting poppycock, balderdash, and mendacity. So anyway, now that you have your adult beverage or your water glass nearby, let's get busy here. What is the Admiralty? Well, the Admiralty, of course, has numerous definitions. You may have watched my videos with Josh of the Urban Odyssey channel. First thing we wanted to tackle was our dictionary of terms. We use the Devil's Dictionary, and we're always adding to the Devil's Dictionary because that's who defines the terminology of the Admiralty as the devil, Satan. As the church lady would say, oh, I don't know who it could be who's controlling that Webster Dictionary. I don't know. Do you know? Could it be perhaps Satan? You think Satan is in charge of the dictionary? Yeah, he is. Yeah, Satan's in charge. Except that Josh, in juxtaposition, we are augmenting and editing the dictionary, which we do respect the name, the Devil's Dictionary. Because, see, if you don't understand the definitions and glossary of terms, terminology, you have no hope of understanding the maritime law society you live in. You won't understand that you live in a brig, B-R-I-G, 1G, B-R-I-G. In other words, it's a prison cell that's part of a maritime sailing vessel. But it could be on land too. It's what we call smart cities, Donald Trump freedom cities. It's what you call your county jail. It's what we call your state prison. It's what we call our federal penitentiaries. Those are brigs. Those are brigs for the sailors. See, a sailor is someone who's been assigned to a Admiralty vessel. It could be a ship or it could be an airplane. It could be a squadron. You could be a member of a squadron. But the first definition of admiralty has to do with the rank of office of being an admiral. An admiral. And an admiral is a high-ranking officer within the chain of command, within the obelisk of naval authority. We follow orders or people die. It's that simple, and it really is that simple. That's what the obelisk is. That's what the pyramid is. It's a hierarchy. And I will go through the ranks and the levels of the hierarchy. There's a grand total of 21 levels within the Navy of the United States. They have 21 levels. They have, I believe it's 11 levels. No, they have 10 levels for enlisted men, and then they have 11 levels for the officer class. And they do divide, never the two shall mingle, right? The officers have their own dining area, and the officers' club for entertainment, and the enlisted man, fend for themselves. Anyway, the first definition of admiralty has to do with an admiral who would be in charge of a fleet of ships or a squadron of airplanes, or, like an aircraft carrier, a combination of airplanes, naval air, and the ship that carries the airplanes, the carrier, the aircraft carrier. You would be considered an admiral if you were in command of an aircraft carrier or a fleet of ships, or a squadron of airplanes, or a fleet that included an aircraft carrier and a squadron. And this is the highest rank within the pyramid of the Admiralty. Okay, the second definition, and the one that pertains mostly to the profane, clueless people who are not who don't believe they're part of a military operation. This refers to our court systems that call it the jurisdiction of the courts. They're all maritime law courts. There are no constitutional-based courts. There are no courts of the law of the land. There's only seagoing courts. Courts that have to do with activities going on in waterways or airspaces. Cargo and freight that's carried on air or ships, vessels. Vessels can fly, or vessels can be amphibious, or vessels can be seagoing only. Anyway, there's a law and a court tribunal system to govern all activities carried on in canals, rivers, streams, sewage treatment plants, reservoirs, watersheds, and ocean. The third definition within the Admiralty is what's referred to as the British government's Royal Navy, and it's called the Department of the Navy, the Department of the British government that pertains to seagoing vessels, right? There's a fourth definition. You won't find it in your Webster Dictionary, but you will find it here on the Juxtaposition channel. The fourth definition of Admiralty is 3 words: Swiss Bank Authority. Swiss Bank Authority. Because you see, all airplanes, all seagoing ships, all amphibious vehicles, all aircraft carriers, all airplanes, all airports, all Navy ports, all port authorities, which have railroad tracks, the cranes to unload and load vessels, and trucking depots to load containers onto chassis to be hauled by tractor trucks. So whether it's intermodal transportation of all types, which would be trucking, rail, or airport, loaded onto an airplane to be taken above and taken presumably somewhere else or sprayed as toxic poison over your community. All activities pertaining to chemtrail dumpings, aerosol spraying, fertilizer, all activities associated with barges on rivers or port authorities of unloading, offloading, and anything to do with your interstate highway system where the trucks can haul containerization vessels known as intermodal transportation containers. There are 20-foot containers, there are 40-foot containers, there are reefers. Reefers refer to refrigerated cargo containers that actually have a refrigerator mechanism attached to the container. They're typically 20 to 40 feet long. Anyway, what I wanted to tell you is that Swiss Bank Authority makes all those things happen because our governments are all insolvent and they have no money. They can't invade Greenland. They can't invade Argentina or Venezuela. They can't do Ukraine war without a Swiss banker wire transferring the money necessary to make a payroll and to buy the fuel, and the food and lodging and activities of daily living for the soldiers who will carry out the operation. So I'm telling you, there are 4 definitions. One pertains to the senior officer within the Navy obelisk, the admiral, and then you have to the jurisdiction of the maritime law courts, which govern all activities that occur on rivers, lakes, sea, ocean, canals, Panama Canal, Suez Canal, Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, for example, Lake Tahoe, for another example. So then we have the third definition is the Department of the British Government pertaining to the Royal Navy and Royal Navy Air Squadrons. The fourth definition, of course, has to do with everything Swiss Bank Authority, which makes it all come true, makes it all get funded, becomes a dream, becomes a reality. Or in my case, a nightmare. I have airplanes flying overhead right now. You don't hear them because my software has what's called noise suppression, so you don't hear what I hear. You don't hear what I hear. You don't hear what I hear. Definitions are everything. So I'm coming to you live right now from the Valley of the Moon in Sonoma County, which is plagued with approximately 100 illegal overflights per day. We have chemtrail dumpings per day. We typically have about 40 of those per day. Then we have about 50 scintillation turbo fixed wing airplanes who excite all the particulates that are dumped over my head. And then we have about 10 to a dozen helicopter overflights, which are extremely loud and low and annoying. That's every day for the last 1,140 days. That's 114,000 illegal military overflights over Sonoma County in 38 months. That's 38 months of terrorism, which the Admiralty has foisted upon everyone in Solano County, Napa County, Sonoma County, Marin County, San Francisco County, Contra Costa County, and Santa Clara County, Alameda County. But not a single word on the news media, not a single word from our meteorologist weather people who are complete frauds. No one has mentioned it at the city council. The mayor doesn't talk about it. The county board of supervisors don't talk about it. The national news doesn't talk about it. They're busy talking about ICE troops and Stormy Daniels, porn stars, Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, who was disappeared out of the milieu of maniacs. We still got Ghislaine Maxwell around. And people are talking about basically what's not relevant. The news and social media and Rumble and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube they're concerned with what is not happening in real time in your hamlet, your strategic hamlet, which is governed under Admiralty law. They're there to distract you, to exhaust you, to use fear porn, to break you down so you capitulate and give up when the day comes they're going to crash the currency. You do know the stock market is fake. All the prices are phony and fake. If you thought that the stock market would be real, you would trade stocks and bonds over Craigslist, right? Just like you do with coffee tables, bicycles, and motorcycles and cars, you can sell all those things on Craigslist. But because of the security laws to protect an illegal felony operation known as the New York Stock Exchange and Wall Street, they have a law to protect their franchise where they skim and chandelier bid up or down the prices of things, including derivative products, including commodities. So gold and silver are tanking today, but who cares, right? Their prices were fake and phony. You'll never get what's called price equilibrium in a rig market. You just get whatever the Swiss Bank Authority says the trading per ounce of gold and silver is. So it's whatever Switzerland says is the price of IBM or Apple or Nvidia or face crack Meta, or whether they want you to give you a price on IBM, I've been moved, or Microsoft, General Electric, General Motors, Ford, who cares? Any company that makes electric cars is worth nothing. It's worth nothing. It's worth less. If you make electric cars, you have a company that is going out of business. All right, so what do we do next? I'm going to run through the chain of command for everyone who may be a little bit confused what I mean by the hierarchy here. And so I push the button and nothing happens. That's wonderful. Let me hit the pause button. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Here are the levels of the chain of command for the United States Navy. Here are the ranks, structured from lowest to highest for enlisted men first. Okay, starts out at the bottom. Enlisted ranks is considered E1. That's enlisted number one rank, entry level, seaman recruit. They have a military acronym for seaman recruit. It's the letters SR, SRR, seaman recruit. You then are promoted to seaman apprentice, which is initials SA. After so many weeks or months at that level, you're promoted to seaman, which is military acronym SN. If you get a promotion after that, you become a petty officer third class. The initial is PO3. It's also known as E4. Petty officer second class, PO2, E5. Then we move to petty officer first class, PO1, E6. Then you become chief petty officer, CPO, chief petty officer, CPO. That's E7. Then you senior petty officer, SCPO, E8. Master Chief Petty Officer, MCPO, E9. And finally, you top out at Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, an acronym known as MCPON, also known as E9S, Senior Enlisted Advisor. That's the 10th highest ranking within the enlisted class. Let me pivot now to United States Naval Officer ranking. We begin with O1, Officer 1. Is ensign, ENS, ensign. You then get promoted to lieutenant junior grade, that's an LTJG. Then you get promoted to lieutenant, which is an O3, LT, lieutenant. Then you become a lieutenant commander, LCDR, also known as officer 4. Then you can become a commander, CDR, 05. Then a captain. A captain is above a commander, and that's a military acronym CAPT. It's an 06. Then you can become a rear admiral lower half, RDML. Then a rear admiral upper half, RADM. Then you become a vice admiral, VADM. Then the 10th ranking is called admiral, ADM. And finally, the highest rank within the obelisk of chain of command in the Navy is called Fleet Admiral, FADM. And this is a 5-star ranking, rarely awarded. This hierarchy will ensure clear lines of authority and responsibility within the Navy, and each rank signifying a progression in expertise and leadership. FADM is the highest level